Good evening from New York. We have all seen the photos and waved metaphorical angry fists at the hypocrisy. Republican lawmakers posing with the checks, funneling money to their own districts, provided by the very stimulus bill they voted against and have been decrying ever since as socialism, as the selling out of our grandchildren, as Armageddon. Now, on the eve of the first anniversary of President Obama's Recovery Act, the stimulus, the appearance in the right-wing press of letters in which many of those self-same Republican lawmakers actively lobby for the money, writing to Obama cabinet members to argue the merits of various pet projects, some might call them pork, in their home states. More than a dozen Republican lawmakers supporting the stim in new letters obtained by the Wall Street Journal through the Freedom of Information Act, supporting it by actively requesting stimulus money from the Obama administration agencies. Senator Bennett of Utah not even having waited for the stimulus to pass before he sent 7 identical letters to the Environmental Protection Agency recommending various infrastructure projects in his own state. He then went to the floor of the Senate and voted against that stimulus bill. After he tried to defeat it, the senator sent one more funding request letter to the EPA. A spokesperson for Senator Bennett saying he was just making sure his state received part of the spending once it had been agreed upon, a claim that might carry some weight if 7 of his 8 letters to the EPA had not preceded his vote. Senator Richard Shelby, he of the indefinite hold on Obama administration appointments, having called the proposed stimulus the socialist way when it was being debated. But after its passage, that did not stop the senior senator from Alabama from signing on to a letter in which the entire delegation from his state asked Forest Service Chief Gail Campbell for $15 million to control and eradicate something called cogran grass in his state. The state of Alabama ultimately getting a grant of more than $6 million to do that. Meanwhile, in the House, Congresswoman Jean Schmidt of Ohio sending a letter to the Labor Department last October to lobby for stimulus funding on behalf of local organizations that do job training. A month later, this past November, the Congresswoman issuing a statement in which she said, quote, "It is time to recall the stimulus funds that have not been spent before the Chinese start charging us interest." Ms. Schmidt's projects not receiving any awards in the funding decisions released by the Obama administration in January. Also denied in that process, the Congressman Paul Ryan, the author of the Let's Do Away with Medicare and Privatize Social Security GOP shadow budget. Their expert, Mr. Ryan, who has called the stim a wasteful spending spree that misses the mark on all counts, writing a letter to Energy Secretary Solis in October to support green job placement in the state of Illinois. Green jobs. The very thing the president was today proposing in Maryland, hundreds of them, in fact, that would result, he says, from the building of a nuclear power plant in Georgia.
It's a plant that will create thousands of construction jobs in the next few years, and some 800 permanent jobs, well-paying permanent jobs, in the years to come.
Let's turn now to our own Gene Robinson, associate editor and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist of the Washington Post. Gene, good evening.
Good to be here, Keith.
Republican lawmakers debating against the stimulus bill while drafting and, if not prematurely, sending letters in which they request its socialist Chinese money, and then voting against it, and then posing with the oversized checks in their districts, all the while still decrying the evils of this process a year after it was signed. Is this the perfect ecosystem of hypocrisy, self-sustaining, self-perpetuating?
It may retire some trophy, I think, Keith. It's like, you know, that's the spawn of Satan. Give me some, by the way. It's almost like as if this were a piece of performance art, a piece written by the late Andy Kaufman, in which you had to do all these ridiculous, transgressive things with a straight face, and they actually try to do this with a straight face. There is no way you can hold these two positions, that the stimulus is unmitigated evil, and by the way, I would really love to have my share of it.
Well, there was a way until we found out about Senator Bennett's first 7 letters, which is, if it's passed, sure, why shouldn't their states get something for it, as long as they don't, claim that they got it passed when they voted against it. But even that devil's argument question's out the window thanks to Bennett now.
Yeah, it really is stunning, and it is. I think I must applaud the Wall Street Journal for coming up with these letters, because they're really quite amazing.
Well, and also where they came out this spokesman for the National Republican Congressional Committee, the people who try to get Republicans reelected to Congress, saying on the anniversary of the Stimulus Act, the quote was, "If the Democrats' answer is to highlight the few worthy projects within what has become regarded as a wasteful and bloated trillion-dollar failure, then they're truly grasping at straws." Are they missing either of the real points here? What's being highlighted is lobbying and opposing the same thing at the same time, and the highlighting was not done by Democrats, but by a newspaper that's co-owned with Fox News.
Well, what they're doing is trying to change the subject, and they're trying to blow smoke because they don't want to deal. I mean, if you were in the position of that Republican campaign chairman, if in that position, you wouldn't want to have to deal with the fact that they were lobbying for something that they had voted against, and trying to get money that they said never should have been appropriated. So sure, it's smoke. But I think they understand the implications of what's going on. They just don't want to deal with it.
It's not blowing smoke now. Blowing smoke is complimenting it. It's asking for $15 million with which to blow smoke, and then saying you're not going to take a dime of that money to blow smoke. And then but Boehner said something that's almost extraordinary, more extraordinary than that. He said today fewer than 1 in 10 Americans believe the $1 trillion stimulus has created jobs. There's the essence of this, that if you lie long enough, you change the metric from how many jobs have been created, how many collapses have been forestalled, to, well, you know, according to our marketing survey says that 72% of Republicans believe the sky is turquoise.
Exactly. You know, 2 points there, Keith. Number one, you said a key word here, lying. Mm-hmm. This is lying. Yeah. I mean, and let's just make no bones about that. It's not just you're right. It's not just blowing smoke. It's flat out lying. I smell the odor of mendacity here. And second, Boehner's point is totally a matter of public relations. The poor stim never really had a shot. It came so close after the financial bailout. I think a lot of people confuse the two. It's never been a popular measure, and it's always been difficult for the administration to really explain to the public, and easy for the Republicans to demonize.
Yeah, coming out now and saying it added between 2 and 3 percentage points to real GDP growth is a little late in the ballgame to win the message war.
Well, and part of the administration's message, Keith, is that the recession would have been much, much worse had the stimulus bill not been passed. Well, we saved X million jobs. That's a valid point for the administration to make, but it's not a sexy headline point. It's harder to get across.
Yeah, it's proving the proverbial negative. Gene Robinson of MSNBC and the Washington Post, as always, great thanks, sir.
Great to be here, Keith.